Now, what I'm going to talk about tonight, basically, the reason for ABC 1, 2, 3. Okay, and I've shown this chart several times since I've shown it lots of times. Okay, but the whole idea of what's happening on your charts, though, is in 3 different trend settings as a rule. Okay, see, here's an A, a B, and a C. Okay, here's an A, a B, and a C, but here's also little A, B, C, A, B. See what I mean? Just keep going. A, B, C, right here even. And what you're doing is you're looking at these swings. And the reason it's so important that you look at these swings is just to give you an example, I'm going to show you some actual trade calls that were called in the room live this morning. And this is one of them right here on ES. Do you remember this? How was this figured out? It was figured out because at 6 o'clock in the morning or so, it had done a phantom. It never took out the low. Notice that it actually held this bottom right here. See where it held that? And it was even a little higher if you look at your price. See, a tick higher. So that's technically a low, a high, a higher low, and a higher high. Notice that this is 63.0375. This is 63.05. Okay, so now when you see this, and remember, this was drawn in real time in the room. So this is not, like, wow, Gary looked at a chart and found a good trade. Now, this was drawn in plenty of time for all of us to take the trade if we wanted to. Keep in mind that since I don't trade ES and I don't like to trade over 2 instruments at a time, I did not take the trade, and I don't miss it that I didn't. But the whole idea is, though, that I will call it so that everybody else can get it. Okay. Now, what you're looking for in a case like this is you just want to keep getting higher lows. Okay. Also, you want to look very, very important at the overall trend. Okay. And you're going to see the same thing when you talk about ABC type moves. There's an A, there's a B, that's a retracement. And then before you ever got any kind of a deeper retracement, it was all the way up here. Now, keep in mind, these are little micro retracements a little bit more. So I'm going to just show you kind of a little bit more like this. And then let's look at Lightning 4 even. See if we can get Lightning 4 to show up. See, there's Lightning 4 right there. There's a low, there's a high. Let's get rid of the others right here. We don't need them. Notice you have a low, you have a high, you have a higher low, higher high, but then it barely took out. So here's your thrust, your retrace, your thrust, your retrace, your thrust. Okay. And what I do is I look at all the swings at virtually the same time so that I can try to figure out what are they doing. Because when they break, like well, just to give an example, let's go back to this. When they break this type of a swing, then they're heading down to check larger swings. Okay. To give an example in this chart, let's say that this price would have come down like right on top of this, for instance, or maybe a little lower, but it still held this higher low. What if it got a higher low right through here? Then it's going to head back up. Okay. And that's the whole key really to an ABC type move, 1, 2, 3. So what we were looking at this morning was this. We had a low, we had a high, we had a higher low, just barely. It doesn't have to be any more than even a tick. That's still a higher low. And then it got a higher high. That's a full 5 ticks higher than this swing. So then you've got to make your decision. Are you a conservative trader or a little bit more aggressive? Okay. So what I like to personally do even is look at my Fibonacci. Okay. And I'll kind of look at this right here. And if I get down around to 61% on a smaller move like that, now keep in mind, this could have kept going. What I'm trying to do is diagnose this like I did this morning so you can get it. Okay. So basically when this thing actually did this thrust, you expect it to do some kind of a retrace. Okay. Now, if it was going to change trends, it would take out this entire area here. Okay. And you would be ready to take it, obviously, if it does. But remember, your overall trend was up. That's really important, by the way. Notice that you have a high here, a low here, a much higher high here, and this area held. See it? They came down to 94.75 and they came down to 94.75 again. They barely took it out by a tick the first time. Trying to get people that actually go a little bit earlier on a trade to get faked into a short when it wasn't a short. Okay. So then what you're doing is when it does come up and then you get some kind of a pullback. Okay. You'll notice that what I did in the room is I drew a pretty safe area for you. I'm sorry about the dog barking. The grandkids are on their way back from the zoo. Linda knows I'm in a webinar. So anyway, it is what it is. The dog barking because the car's pulling in the garage, I'm sure. Okay. And we don't begrudge it. We're family and all that kind of stuff, but she does know better. All right. So anyway, you see what I'm getting at. See how this did a thrust and a retrace. Okay. Now, when you get this short of a thrust, like so, you really expect more than 50% pullback. You expect 61 and sometimes even 76. But if this was truly going to head up, it's got to be in this little area right here to go back up. Okay. Now, the key after that, oh, I appreciate it, Dave. I'm not upset with him, believe me. But anyway, if you start looking at, what are we looking at over here on the right side of the chart, then you start getting into a little bit more of the smaller move, this move. Okay. So then you're looking at the lightning, and I'll just draw it for you right quick, just real quick here. And see, that's a series of a low, a high, a higher low, a higher high, barely higher low, maybe the same. I can't really see if that's a tick difference, so we don't care. So now you look at low, high, higher low, higher high. So what would it take to get this trade to go up? It just has to take out 1, 2, 3. Okay, and if it takes out 1, 2, 3, then you already know where your stop can be and everything else. It's a beautiful way to trade. Okay, so when I called that this morning, it did this, and it took out that high, and you wait for it to take out that high with that bar, and you got that trade. And look how it perfectly kissed it even. That is as textbook of a perfect trade as there ever is, period. Because if you got in that trade when that was called this morning, you literally felt no heat whatsoever, okay? Because we got in right at that 63.02, the line was drawn in the room and everything, and the people that really got the trade were the ones that waited for the pop and pullback. Now, the pullback is key to it, by the way, okay? Now, we developed a tool in Object Trader so that you could actually say, you know what, I'll take that trade if it breaks 63.02, but only if it breaks it by X ticks and comes back and kisses it. I'm gonna show you that little trader here in just a second, because we're gonna concentrate literally on, you know, what was called, and to teach you how to see these ABCs, because you're looking always at this type of a trend, this type of a trend, and then this is your micro trend. Okay, and micro trends are really important because when they break micro trends, they'll go down and check secondary trends. If they break secondary trends, they'll go down and check medium trends. And if you get higher lows on medium trends, you're still heading the same direction. If you break those, then you're heading the opposite direction. Okay, now we've got a lot of things on our charts, like different colors, things like that. What I firmly believe in is these stair-stepping mid-bands are very, very important. Okay, let me show you just real quick before we put this on like a playback deal, because I'm going to show you how you could take that trade with a feature that a lot of our people like. Matter of fact, our programmer Pat that developed it, he uses this feature. He likes a break and a kiss. You don't always get them, but you can always move them if you don't, because the whole thing is, if you set this for a break and kiss, and let's say it didn't quite come back and kiss your limit, then you could always just move the limit right into the price. Okay, but let me show you something real quick on even gold and see if you can see the exact same thing that happened. Okay, let's go back to where we're in the room at the time. Bear with it a second. All right, and here we go. What's the overall trend on gold? For the most part, low, high, higher low, much higher high before we ever open the room. So what are we really looking for on this particular chart? Well, you're looking for this. You got a low here, you got a high there. This came to 34.14.1 and 34.14 even. It never took this out. So these are higher lows. Since they're only a tick apart, we'll just choose one of them. It doesn't really matter because they're so close. So I'm going to pull this down to here. Now, what would it take for this to head up instead of down? You have to break 1, 2, 3. Okay. So here's your A, which is 1, 2, 3. Okay. So again, this is the key to getting these trades. And until they do something like this, you're not really going to be taking anything simply because it's just sideways. To give an example, okay, if I was, let's say this was 5:30 in the morning or 6, and I was trying to figure out how to trade this. Well, right off the bat, I know that if they broke this is a pretty good downtrend on this side, but it's still an uptrend on this side, right? So, but still, you can actually still get the trade. Bear with me a second. I'll get us back to where we were on that so you can see it. Here's where we drew it, okay? So if they would have broken here and kissed and rolled, then yes, we would be looking for a short. Now, is this a legitimate short, though, on our first time into Phantom after a trend change? Yes. And you could actually take that when you get those power dots. See that power dot? Because you can get a good 10-tick trade on that. But what I do a lot of times when I'm trading so that I don't get on the wrong side of a trade is I like to look at the overall trend. And to me, you know, you had this low, this high, right? You had this higher low right here. And of course, you can clearly see you had a much higher high, right? So is that an uptrend or a downtrend with lows, highs, higher lows, and higher highs? It's still an uptrend, right? So what kind of a retracement was this? It looks like about 61%. If you look at the fibs, it probably is. Let's see if it was, maybe 50. Almost 61.8, not quite, okay? So if you want to stay on the right side of the trade, then what you want to do is like I teach here, okay? So let's go ahead and do our low. I accidentally erased it. Remember, we had a higher low here. And if you get a higher high, that would be a 1, 2, 3, okay? Now, without me even showing this, you heard it called in the room this morning. See, but the whole thing is, anybody can see this after the fact, okay? Anybody on the planet can see it like, well, yeah, that started trending. That was awesome. But what takes the real brilliance in trading is being able to see it as it's happening. Because, I mean, if somebody was to say, you know what, let's say, well, yeah, that might be breaking up. Well, yeah, that might be breaking up. Well, maybe we better get long. You see what I mean? That's not trade calling. But to have a line drawn on the chart where we know where to get in is trade calling. Now, notice the difference in gold and SE. Low, high, higher low, breaks it, and off it goes. It doesn't even look back. You can't use the break and touch as much on gold. Now, occasionally it will, but most times it just goes. Okay. And if you were to get that trade at 34.1690 area right there, say maybe 34.17 even, 3 ticks above it, you got a monster trade. And to me, this is literally key to trading, because if you took this trade with like I don't know, 3 contracts or something like that, and literally got rid of one as soon as it even started trying to pull back, and maybe jump back in with more on a mid band, that could turn into a heck of a trade. Because one thing also that you expect when you get in these trades is you expect that same 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's just pretend that this is all sideways, which it really is. So here's your 1, your 2, and your 3. Now we don't know where it went after that, but the whole thing is, though, you can clearly see that when you get into a trade, you're trying to get a 1, a 2, and a 3. If you can get a thrust, a pullback, and another thrust, you could be done with that trade, because that is a monster trade. You don't have to keep chasing it either. Okay. By the way, the same thing happens over and over on your charts. Let's look at crude oil to give an example. And bear with me a second. I'll go back to the exact same area so it's fair. And let's go to 730. Bear with me a second, because we don't open the room until 7:30, so it's not fair to say anything. Now, this was a trade. Let me show you this real quick, though. This was a trade that I did call for my daughter. She was giving us a call. She said, I'm in the room. Well, she wasn't in the room because I don't open the room, but she was trying to get in the room. But this little trade right here, where this came up, now, did this actually do the same thing that we were talking about on the other side? Let's look at it. You had a low, you had a high, you had a higher low, and you did break up a little bit right here. But what's the overall trend? It's different. See, the other charts we looked at, they were heading up. Is oil heading up at 3 o'clock in the morning, at 6 o'clock in the morning? No, it was heading down. So that's the key to what we're doing here, because this did do a little fake, but you're not going to take that, okay? Because for one thing, you're looking for first time to phantom after a trend change to begin with, and there it was right there. But there was no reason to go long on this particular trade right here. Even if you look to the left to trade the right, you had a swing right across here, like so. You had another swing right across here. Notice that that low, that high, and that low never got taken out back to the upside, okay? And the overall trend was down. So what are you doing in a case like this? You're literally boxing this in like this right here and taking that power dot. And that turned into a nice $400 trade for my daughter this morning. And by the way, not with but 2 contracts, and not taking a chance with the 2 contracts. Because in other words, when she got, I think probably 2, maybe 250 or so, she probably took some coin and then just rode the runner itself. And she knows by our teaching in the room, our target is technically just at the swing, because you don't know when you're going to get a double bottom and they're going to bounce on you. But you can always watch the bars. See if they go through it, you're fine. Okay. But if they hesitate, then you want to fully take coin. Okay. Anybody have any questions on this thus far? Because this is really, really, really key to this in trading. All right. Does anybody remember that we got a long trade on crude oil? Now, how did we get a long trade on crude oil when the overall trend was down? It was a different story. Your swing is identified. Okay, let me show you what I'm talking about here. And this gets a little bit more technical with it, but here's a little swing here. Here's a little swing back up, a little retracement. All right, and that's why we said you weren't taking long here, because it never took out the swing on the left. The swing on the left is extremely important. Okay, now it's not as important if the trend's going your direction, but it is important if the trend is, for instance, not going your direction. So when you look at this right here, let me ask you a quick question. Okay, you have a low here, you have a little bit lower low. So technically at that point, they're heading down a little bit more. So then you draw on your chart. Where's your swing? You've got a little thrust, retrace thrust. There's a little swing right across there. There's a swing right across here, like so. And so if they start getting lows, highs, higher lows, and higher highs and breaks this, then you would be heading back to the upside, but not until, because this could easily still, keep heading down. How do you know what level to set the box? Is that the low of the bar? Well, Mark, on your question there, basically, we like to use, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit that. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. All right, what we do is we actually utilize these power dots quite a bit. I like these power dots because, to give you an example, like right here, you wouldn't have gotten filled on that until that bar right there. See that bar right there? So you would have probably gotten a fill of about 65.96. I think my daughter, matter of fact, clearly said she got at, I believe it was 95 or 96. But anyway, that was the power dot. Okay. So the whole idea of every trade, though, is you're not going to just hold and hold and hold, because that's not the way markets do. If markets would do like SE did this morning, to give an example, yes, you can hold it as long as you're stair stepping on your micro trend. If this was to go like this and just keep stair stepping up and stay with it. But when it starts stair stepping down, realize that they're going to go down to the next level, and you've got to then start checking your fibs and all that kind of stuff. Okay, but like on this particular one right here, notice that you've got a low, you've got a high. Let's see, you've got a higher low so far. See it? Now we don't know if this is going to head up though. But does anybody remember that being drawn on the chart this morning because of that exact diagnosis? Okay, this one started out, never came to fruition, right? Then you got a higher low. They didn't stair step. You got a lower low, so you're checking it again. You got to get some kind of a pullback, thrust, retrace. Okay, does it break here? Well, it didn't break here, just wicking it. So then you go, okay, with this small of a move, I want to get at least a 61% retracement. Okay, so there's a 61 right there. They went down to 76. Okay, so that's when I'll start looking at these to see if possibly I might want to be watching for a trend change. And it gives you plenty of time because, you know, this was from 8:18 to about 8:39. So that's easily 21 minutes. So you got plenty of time. Okay, but notice what starts happening though. See, there's another higher low, another higher low. Anybody remember this while we were in the room this morning? Another higher low, and then off it went. Notice that when you draw on your chart, that's totally different than gold, by the way. You can get those thrusts and pullbacks, okay? Because they will usually do it on oil and even ES. Gold will take off like a bird, never let you even have a chance at it unless you take the break. But keep in mind, we're not talking about taking breaks of like big consolidation patches. That would be called a breakout trade. We don't do that. We have to get the higher lows and higher highs, or we're not going to take a trade long, and vice versa for a short. But notice how to diagnose this now. And this can definitely get a little bit sloppy. I'd give anything myself, even if it wasn't quite so sloppy sometimes, but it is what it is. But you will still notice that before they head up, they will get higher lows. See this higher lows right through here at that 53? That's when you're starting to think, that might be a pretty good thing to be looking at. See what I mean? And this is fairly close to what ESSI was looking like, but not quite, because you had to break this. And ESSI, with its, where I drew it on its midband this morning to line 5, it was perfect. Okay, but notice how, if you can draw on these charts like this, they will usually come back and exactly kiss them. And they may even give you another chance at kissing it, because the shorties aren't sure that it's heading up yet. So they go, okay, we'll break, we'll kiss, give you a 20 tick trade, and then we'll pull all the way back to your cost and give the run. Okay, but notice that they didn't take it out at all. I mean, it just stayed perfectly. So there's technically 2 trades there. Okay, and you'll be able to do this on every single chart just by simply drawing where your 1, 2, 3s are, your ABC type setups. Okay, again, I think it's just an absolutely beautiful way to trade. So did y'all see what kind of a run it actually ends up making? But then you've always got to look on the left and start doing your count again. You know, here's a pullback. That's like a leg 1 so far. Look to the left to trade the right. That's a high, low, much higher high. So this is like a line in the sand long short as far as the what? Lightning 3 is concerned. Okay. So if they break this, could they head down? Well, you'd have to get a 1, 2, 3. So you're going to pretty much have to break this, and you're probably going to have to break this since it's on the left. And if it does, you could actually change trends after a KISS type trade, or you can take a breakout trade, but I wouldn't advise doing it with more than one contract until it proves you that it's going to stay where you want it to. So let's see if this did. Now we closed the room at 10 o'clock, but let's just see. See how you had a higher low again? Double top. You got your line drawn. Double top definitely, by the way. Another little trade if you took it. But watch what happens. Okay, now you can draw it again. See your low, your high, higher low still. Right through here is your higher low. That's a little higher low again. So you could take that trade to the long side. But you also got to keep in mind if they do decide to break it later on at all, that you already know where they're going to do it. Okay, that's that line in the sand type trade. But let's go ahead and start our count again. We got a high, low, lower high, barely lower low, double top, high, low, lower high, higher low. So let's see what it does. Now you got to start it again because that's a higher high again. So here's our low right here. There's our high. Okay, that's a high, low, lower high, and lower low. Right here, though, is your line in the sand long short, right across this area right here and even here. Okay, and that's kind of a phantom trade too. So could this actually work as a phantom? Well, you're breaking line in the sand long short on the right, just not on the left yet. See your high, your low, your higher high. That's that ABC type stuff. Okay, so if they break this, could you short it? And the answer would be yes, because you are breaking what I consider to be a high, a low, a lower high, and breaking right there. Okay, let's see if it goes on down. That's a break. There's a kiss. There's a kiss. Let's turn on our power dot and see if we can get a trade. See there, power dot got you a trade. And it got it perfectly at the line within just a little bit. See what I mean? See how you can see? I mean, you can see every trend change on every chart if you just learn how to draw them. And if you don't have time to draw them, you've got to be able to see them, because it's really important that you can see what's going on in your charts. Anybody have any questions on it so far? Any questions thus far? Because I'll be happy to answer them. You want to see it right now after, this is actually what's going on right now. Right now, I'll go ahead and fast forward the chart. So let's look to the left to trade the right. High, low, lower low, lower high than here. So could this be a downtrend? Well, it actually is at this point, but you also got to see that right across here is your line in the sand on short so far. Now over on this side, you got a little micro one right here, like so. So could it actually be trying to head up and kiss that 66.47? Well, it could, but truthfully, with this moving as slow as it is, this is 5 o'clock and that's like 6 bars. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot vaccinated crowbar myself because I like at least some kind of movement. But you can clearly see on your chart that you got options, right? Because right now you got a stair-stepping midband. So you could actually say, okay, if it broke this little area right across here, they'll probably break down. And if they do start getting a low, a high, a higher low, and then a higher high, then maybe we'll look the other way. But right now, as far as an ABC is concerned, you've got an A. Okay, you can't tell what this is going to do yet if it's going to change trends, because to get an ABC, you got to get this. And if it's going to be an up move, it's got to be higher than that. And that's all it has to do. And they can slop around for quite a while until they do it. But you got to get some kind of a pullback. And you always want to, with that short of a move, you want a good 61 to 76% retracement on this to even see if you get a higher low. Okay. Now keep in mind, since this is a short, you're not necessarily looking for a long. So if you get a power dot, then you could short this. Okay. Because looking left to trade the right, they're not going to really head up until they take out 44, at least at this moment. Now, if they were to get a low, a high, a higher low, and let's say they played around for a while and you never took out this low and you kept getting higher lows, you know, let's say they just did something like this. And then they said, okay, we fooled you. And they come back down a little bit lower, like to maybe 80%. And then they decided to go ahead and take it up. Your entry would be right across here, because that would be the same thing as what you had earlier. Right here. See, and if you learn to really see this on your charts, you're not going to get whacked around either, because frankly, there's no trade here except right at this moment, short. If it doesn't work, then I would be quickly out of it and then watch for this type of move. You know, could it actually get a higher low, like maybe an 80%, not take out this, and then they start zigzagging, then they fake you again? Well, this could actually still be a short, okay? Because if you could get down here with an 80%, that's worth taking this trade right across here if it breaks, okay? But if they faked it, then you'd want to get out of it, because they could easily still go higher, then finally pull back and then take off. Or they may just keep trucking on down, because so far you've got a low, high, lower low, a little higher high, so I start my count again, high, low, lower high. Are they going to get a lower low? We don't know yet. Okay, let's look at, let's see, are you going to show how OT can take the break and kiss? Yeah, we can do that. Let's do the ES on that one, okay? I'll do an ES chart. I'm going to have to put this in playback mode just real quick, so bear with me a second. And we're also going to have to put it in the proper timing, because I want to show you how to use that feature. Bear with me a second. All right, there's your playback. Now, what you would do in a case like this, okay, is we had that drawn at 63.02. So if you wanted to do what's called a break and kiss long, this is your break and kiss long right here. Okay, now this can be set for 6 ticks, 4 ticks, whatever you want it, 5 ticks, it doesn't matter, because when we start this, and we better start this, otherwise we're going to lose this date right here real quick. Now see, notice how that little break line is there and the break and kiss line is here. So it has to break, kiss, and it puts in a limit order. Okay, puts in a limit order as soon as it breaks and kisses. Now we could even move this like right here even, you know, because you got a swing right across there. But in the room, I clearly said put a band 5, remember? So band 5 was right there. Okay, and you can set this on the fly as long as you get a tick. I could set this for a break of 10 if I wanted to, but sometimes you won't get it. Let's see if we can speed this up a little bit more. And by the way, you can change the color of these lines and stuff too, because with our colors, frankly, I don't like the baby blue, but I've recently put in, you know, my NinjaTrader from scratch. I had an issue where for some reason with my scripts, I could not compile, and no matter what I did, I couldn't. So I actually got a hold of Linda's from her computer, and then Pat sent something else with like midband and stuff, and I got into a situation I couldn't compile again. So I just had him give me all the scripts, and then I rechanged the licenses and all that. So like I was telling a gentleman in the room this morning, the best way to be able to change NinjaTrader around is to have it to where you don't have a lot of junk on your computer, not a lot of NinjaTrader third-party stuff, okay? Now just think if you would have cloned this. By the way, we can't clone it because it's in playback, okay? Now see, this has to break and kiss. So in other words, see it fake so far, and see it's still pulling back. Notice that you didn't get a trade there. Now if I would have put a break line there, you would have. Okay, in hindsight, we know that if you even got in here, but we're going to do it exactly like I taught in the room this morning. Band Trader, I'll show you that one, Pat. That one's pretty cool. But Deb wants to see this one first, and then I'll put in a band trade for you. speed this up a little bit more. That's 6 times normal speed, so hopefully it'll do something here in a minute. By the way, you can put your target, like here, whatever you want to do. That's 817. Notice that they haven't broken the break and kiss line, because break and kiss means that it has to break and it has to kiss that line to put in a limit order. Okay. See, there's some things on Object Trader that a lot of people don't even know we have because we've got such great tools on it. Fibonacci is perfect. They have to go more than 10 times. It's not even 830. There's 830. That's going to go fairly quick. See, when that breaks and kisses that line, it will put in a limit order. Now in playback, I'm not sure how this is going to go at 10 times normal speed, so we'll find out. But Deb, that is the way that you do that. Now I'd recommend, like I called it this morning, where you actually got in with the band trader, okay? Because see that, and I didn't even turn that on. I didn't have long one, sorry about that. But anyway, you see where it would have done it? It broke and it kissed, okay? Let me show you what band trader does, okay? If you want to trade band trader, let's go ahead and back that up just a little bit. I'll show you band trader. We'll go to 819. Let it go ahead and do its thing. Give it just a second. All right, when I called this one this morning, I said use band trader, and that's band 1. Notice it says band 1. That's band 2. That's band 3, band 4, band 5. So when this one you don't want to actually maybe jump in with just a touch. So I usually set mine a couple of 3 ticks, sometimes 4 ticks above it. That way I don't get faked in. And this trade would also trigger just like I drew it in the room this morning. And at 8:30, you would get your 3 contracts and all that. And of course, you can set that with whatever you want to. You can set your stop however you want it and all that. That's 500 times normal speed there. I'm not going to go 500. That's going to blitz through that. Bear with me a second. We'll go 30 times normal speed. But see, the way this will do is this won't even take this trade until it breaks that band by 4 ticks. Now, if I want to just break it by 2 ticks, I can just simply change this on the fly. See, it broke it by 1. There it is. And there's your trade. And see, that was called live in the room like that. And could you turn that into a monster trade or not? That was a monster. And by the way, let me slow it down just a little bit. I called another trade on it, and that was a mid-band trade. So what if you were just in one and willing to ride this thing and said, you know what, let's do a mid-band trade, mid-band power dots, and turn on to get another contract? Because what's the whole idea of thrust and retrace, right? Well, we know for a fact right this very moment, looking at ABC 1, 2, 3, that we cannot take out the swing right here. Now we can kiss it, but we can't take it out because you got a high, low, higher, high. So if they take that out, they're changing trends. It puts a limit order exactly at your line, Deb. And you can actually move that limit order because it's a live type of an order. It's like if you right click the chart and put a buy market or buy limit order, pardon me, it actually puts it on your chart. I'll try to simulate that again just in a second, okay? Let's go ahead and go to this and see. So keep in mind that if you want to get like a mid-band trade or something like that, then just wait for it to pull back and do a mid-band trade and see if you can get a nice little pullback, okay? Because you'll usually get some kind of a pullback and get a mid-band trade. See, there's a mid-band trade right there. You're in 2, and you just took 1 out, and look at your P&L on that. And that was called live this morning in the room. So let's go back to Deb's trade real quick. I'm going to back it up one more time. We'll go to 825 will be fine. I didn't take those orders off though. Let me kill those. All right, so Deb, if you wanted to do the break and kiss, okay, the way you do that is you'd simply do it just like I had mentioned. We put our break and kiss long, you drag it down like that, okay? And then when you get a tick, it's going to set your break and kiss at whatever you set this at. So if I wanted that set at 6 or 4 or 5 or whatever, then that's where I have to do that. All right, and notice if you get a tick, see how that did that? I'm going to try to do this slower so you can see it because we know how 830 is. And let's just go ahead and see if it'll move its tail end. And let's turn this on this time. Pat literally loves the break and kiss. You know, he designed it for me. I was the one that asked for it, but he designed it. See, that's breaking it, but it's not kissing that yet. So break, kiss, and there's your limit. See there? See how it just tagged your limit? Isn't that cool? Pretty good way to trade. All right, now keep in mind another thing you can do. Let me show you something else too. We'll back it up one more time and let it do its thing. There's all kinds of ways to enter this, people. There really is. To give you an example, like what if you just said, you know what? Gary said take 6302 if it breaks. Well, set it at buy market, and you can change this on the fly if I want to take more contracts. See, that's in 3 now. It's not in anything yet, though. So then when the market opens, that would be my limit order, and it would fire the trade accordingly. See, because that's a limit order. Okay. You can also do it, of course, with a region. I'll show you another way you can do it too. Let's back it up one more time. Let's go back to about 824 so we don't have to wait. Come on. Keep getting close to 24 and then it moves to 31. I don't want 31. Come on. That's 810, so we'll have to wait for it. I'll show you another way that you can do it too. Go ahead and let Object Trader go on the chart. You can also do like power dots to give an example. You can even do like multiple. See, like let's say I wanted to do multiple object types. So let's say that I said we wanted to get a trade at 6302. You could use a break trade at 6302. All right. You could use a power dot. You could use a, let's see here, like a band trade. Went to the wrong one, sorry. I keep going the wrong one. Like so, even if you wanted to. And keeping in mind that this is consolidating around a mid-band. So let's say that I wanted to do multi-object type long up to like 4. Well, I've only chosen 3 object types, so let's see if we can pick another one. So let's go with, let's see, we already got a region, so we can't use another region. Stealth? Yeah, let's do stealth. There you go. So there's stealth. So now this will fire 1 contract on each one of these object types. Whichever hits first, it would fire. I'll go ahead and turn it on so you can see it. See, there's 1. That's in 2. That would also break that line right there. So see, right now you've got break on and stealth on. So that's all you're going to get. And then you just simply move your targets out of the way or whatever. See how that's actually now got everything but stealth there? You just got your stealth too. Notice how that got in all of the different trade types by just simply setting it on multiple object types. Isn't that cool? But the whole takeaway to this tonight is this. You're always looking for if it's short, it's going to be a lower high than the previous, right? And then you're looking for this break, and you're going to be boxing those in accordingly, depending on which instrument it is, with a break only like gold or a break and a kiss like ES. Okay, and then the opposite direction, of course, you're looking for this, which is a B with a higher low, and it doesn't matter how many of them it does. It's just the whole idea that it never takes out the low. You know, that would be your area that you'd be looking for short if it was to decide to, instead of doing this, to actually do more like this and just keep heading down and finally take it out. Then you take the break kiss. Keep in mind that everything that's on here can be done one at a time. It can be done multiple. It can even be done in what's called continuous. Now, continuous would just leave them turned on. You know, for instance, let me just show you something here. We'll back it up one more time. We'll go to 8:19 is close enough. I'll show you how continuous mode works. Let's say that I just wanted to do bar closes only. I said, okay, I'm going to do bar close up to 4. And if a bar closes up, I'm just going to take a trade. Well, on continuous mode, this would actually fire when the first bar closes up. There's a trade. Oops, let's see, what do we do? What are we doing here? I'm on bar close long. Oh, it's hitting at 12 is what it's doing. That's what it is. I've got to move this. But anyway, see how it's on continuous right now? See, every time that it hits a target, it's going to go all the way up to 4. See, that's actually in full auto mode on bar close. Now, I'm not saying that would work most times because it won't. Okay, but that's the way it does work. Every bar close, if that's on continuous, this doesn't turn off. If you turn it off continuous, it's off. See, so in continuous mode, that just means that this stays in every bar close, it would take a trade. What if you wanted it on every power dot? Let's back it up one more time, then we're going to wrap. I'm going to put it at 8:27. Bear with it a second. Let it do its calculating. And let's just do it on continuous on power dot. All right. And if it gets a power dot green, keep in mind that this is going to actually fire. I'm going to get this out of the way because we know what it did. And I'll get this out of the way just so we can watch it. But when this gets a power dot, it'll actually fire a trade. Oh, it won't if I don't turn it on. Doggone it. Just a second. We'll go one more time. Never forget to turn your trades on or you won't get a trade. Because Object Trader has to be told by you what it can do. All right, so let's go with, wow, that's weird. Got some kind of strange stuff going on. Let me see if I can fix it. Are going to fire that you don't see. I've showed that in the room several times. So realize that that's going to look like it's something that it shouldn't do, but it will do it. All right, so let's say, we'll get this out of the way. Let's say that you wanted to do this with power dots. You just simply turn this on. Don't you dare redo back to 11 p.m., you turkey. I'll just show it in the room in the morning instead, because this literally did exactly what playback does a lot. It went right back instead of doing what I told it to do. I don't know what does that. If anybody else has an idea on that, I'd like to know. Because it shouldn't do that when you just start a chart. All right, we'll do it one more time anyway. All right, we're at 8 a.m. So let's say that you wanted to do power dot. Now you're not going to get a mid-band power dot because it's the wrong color, so you'd have to do power dot on. And then if you did continuous, then every green power dot would fire the trade accordingly. And in a case like this, your stop would have to be way down here. See what I mean? So if you did do like power dots or something like that, you'd have to look at your swings. And I wouldn't probably do that simply because I don't like to get in continuous trade, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. If that gets a power dot, it will fire. There's one power dot. And I'll show you where these power dots are and you'll be able to see it. I'm gonna get this out of the way for just a second. We know it didn't go down there, but there's another power dot. See if it's in continuous mode, what it does. There'll be another power dot here pretty shortly. And keep in mind that once you get 4 contracts, then it's through unless it hits a target, and then it would look for another one. So you got to be careful of continuous mode. See, there's all 4. Now watch it if it hits one of these targets, that you'll actually see that you'll get another power dot. See how that's now only in 3? See how it got another one just then? It's going to get another one there. See what I mean? Those are power dots. See there? Now to get rid of that, you'd have, and we already flattened. So see how that can work? Now your power dots, let me close it, turn that off. Your power dots didn't just fire here, 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 and here. They fired down here also. And I showed this in the room, but not everybody comes to the room at the same time. So I'll show you here. On power dots, if this is turned off on trend criteria, these power dots fire right here on Object Trader. Now, if you had required trend on, they don't. If you had required trend on, the only one would fire would be not that one, this one would, and that one would. Okay. But without required trend on, you could fire 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you know, keep hitting targets or whatever, and you can see what it did. Now, keep in mind that that's because we know where I called the trade and everything. But if you would have traded it like this morning, you'd be surprised what you could have made. Okay. But the whole takeaway of this is be sure and watch for the overall trend. Don't just fall for any little shorts unless you're scalping only. Okay. And you've got to have at least on a thrust, even a bigger thrust like that, you got to have a 50% or you're not touching it. And on a smaller thrust, you want 50, 61, or even 76. Okay. Did this webinar help everybody out a little bit? Think so? Cool. Well, that's what I'm aiming for, is so that everybody can get nicely green in my room.